Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Managing Your Award Grantee training hosted by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Bureau of Justice Assistance team to begin introductions and the presentation.
Thanks, Daryl. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today. My name is Eric Dietrich. I'm an Associate Deputy Director in the BJA Programs Office, and along with my colleague, Division Chief Steve Fender, I'll be helping answer questions during today's webinar. As detailed in the invitation, the Managing Your Award webinar will cover critical aspects of This is not a program-specific webinar, and it's intended to provide general information applicable to all of BJA's programs. BJA will be hosting separate orientation webinars specific to most of our grant programs. Having said that, I'm happy to introduce the real stars of the show, BJA Grants Management Specialist Danielle Whitestone, Aaron Feely, and Issa Legal, who will be delivering today's content. Again, thank you for attending, and I will turn it over to Danielle.
All right, great. Thank you, Eric, and welcome everyone. On deck today, we will review the history of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, review revisions to the Part 200 uniform requirements, touch on award elements, and then go over training and other resources. We will leave time to do a Q&A session at the end. Also, as Eric mentioned, him and Stephen will be tending to the questions posed in the Q&A. Next slide, please. Yay, polls. So today we have our first poll question. So please choose the best response regarding your experience managing OJP, BJA awards. I'll give everyone a few moments for you to select your response. Maybe like 10, 15 seconds. All right. See some responses coming in. That's great. All right. I think it's good now. All right, cool. So it looks like we got a mix here. We have folks who've managed multiple awards. We have some that haven't. So, this is great for everyone. It's a refresher. It's welcome. It's an onboarding session for the new folks. So awesome. And all right, well, we'll go to our next slide. Another poll. So we like polls. So this question is to see who we have on the call today. If you could select what your role is with managing the awards. I will give you all a few moments, seconds to provide the best response. I do want to note that while you're answering these, that one person can assume multiple roles in Just Grants, but for the purpose of the poll, I believe you're only able to select one. So answer whichever. All right, we're getting answers in. All right, so we got a mix. We got some grant award administrators, awesome financial managers, which is great because they're the, my main point of contact through the post award. So great, thanks, Daryl. If you could move to the next slide, please. All right, so before we get started, I want to take a moment to briefly discuss BJA, or the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Next slide, please. Oh, already there. All right, so the Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA, was created in 1984 to reduce violent crime, create safer communities, and reform our nation's criminal justice system. BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and helps America's state, local, and tribal jurisdictions reduce and prevent crime, reduce recidivism, and promote a fair and safe criminal justice system. BJA focuses its programmatic and policy efforts on providing a wide range of resources, including training and technical assistance to law enforcement, courts, corrections, treatment, reentry, justice information sharing, and community-based partners to address chronic and emerging criminal justice challenges nationwide. And Carlton Moore is our current director of BJA. BJA supports the criminal justice field in a variety of ways, of course, directly through our grants and cooperative agreements, but also by educating and providing training, researching and publishing what works, as well as consulting with and convening stakeholders across the criminal justice spectrum. Next slide. We view our relationship with you all as the recipients like a partnership. We aim to provide every tool, resource, support so you can be successful in achieving the goals and objectives of your award. Please view us as a resource and do not hesitate to reach out to us when you have questions, concerns, or discuss any aspects of your award. Next slide equals water rate. So throughout the course of your award, you will be interacting with multiple people who are here to support your work. First, we have our BJA policy staff. These folks provide national leadership to criminal justice organizations that partner with BJA to identify effective program models for replication and infuse data-driven, evidence-based strategies into operational models, practices, and programs. As their title implies, they also provide policy guidance and training as well as technical assistance to communities and criminal justice partners to meet emerging and chronic criminal justice needs. When it comes to grant programs, the policy staff design the grant programs and direct technical assistance to help you meet your goals. And from the stars, no, I'm just kidding. The program's office grant managers are responsible for assisting with the post-award functions, such as accepting the award all the way through the closeout phase. I cannot express this enough. We are here to guide you through the entire life cycle of your award. Please be sure to touch base with us and reach out if and when you have any questions. We also have our Planning, Performance, and Impact team, also known as PPI, who is available to assist with a variety of resources and services that include providing wraparound training and technical assistance on data collection and analysis support, assist with reporting requirements to ensure accurate data reporting, review and clean data to support data integrity, perform data analysis to identify opportunities for training and technical assistance, and last, develop products to share program successes. And our training and technical assistance, TTA providers, are a supportive service to the field and our policy folks and work to relay information regarding goals and objectives of the program. The program's office is responsible for providing timely and accurate grants administration information and assistance across the broad array of BJA grant programs to ensure project success and compliance. Your grant manager's name, email address, and phone number are listed in the Funded Award and Just Grants. On this slide here, we have the location where this information can be found, which is located on the right-hand side of the award. So you have to access the award and then you'll see our information there. Next slide, please. All right, now let's hop to the revisions that were recently made to the Part 200 uniform requirements effective as of October 1st of this year. Okay, so while the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, issues the standard guidance, each federal agency must apply the guidance through their own regulations. Now, for your award, the last bullet spells out the changes that are effective for any new awards or any action taken on active awards on or after October 1st of this year. Next slide, please. For awards made after October 1st, the timing of whether and how the Part 200 updates applies is based on the date of the action under the award, not the actual award date. These updates cannot be applied to actions before October 1st, 2024, that is completed retroactively. So generally, actions will require prior approval via grant award modification or GAM and Just Grants. Next slide. All right, so we have listed here some of the updates. However, this list is not exhaustive, and I'll only briefly mention these. First, the revisions now allow for obligation of administrative closeout costs after the period of performance. Obligations for all other types of costs must be made within the performance period. This is the only exception. For indirect costs, the de minimis rate has increased from 10% to 15%, and the subrecipient threshold has increased from $25,000 to $50,000 under the modified total direct cost, or MTDC. I kept practicing that. I kept getting the letters mixed up. So this means you may charge indirect costs up to the first 50,000 of each subaward. Also, the equipment threshold has increased from 5,000 to 10,000, although it's still the case that you should follow your agency's own threshold for capitalization if it is lower than this. And lastly, some revisions were made to this section on budget and program plan revisions. However, OJP has not revised its policy on requesting a no-cost extension, which still must be submitted 30 days before the project end date, preferably earlier. Communicate that with your grant manager. And prior approval of changes to subaward or new subawards is required if there is an award condition to that effect. Next slide, Daryl. And thank you, by the way. Just a few more updates to mention. First, the single audit threshold was increased from 750,000 to 1 million. There were updates to subrecipient monitoring, which include a larger emphasis of the prime recipient monitoring responsibilities, such as risk assessments, including fraud risk, and confirming, and I also suggest documenting, that recipients are not suspended or debarred from receiving federal funds. Next, there were updates to procurement standards, which now allow the use of geographic preference for competition, considering small, minority, women, and/or veteran-owned businesses, as well as labor surplus area firms. That's a mouthful. And finally, tribes can follow their own procurement policies and procedures when it comes to competition requirements, unless they don't have their own policies, in which case they must follow their federal requirements. Essentially, this means tribes with their own competition standards do not need to request prior approval for a sole source contract as long as they are following their own procurement policies. Next slide, please. All right, hopefully some or all of you participated in the OJP Q&A sessions about the updates to the Part 200 uniform requirements. And the impact of future OJP awards. However, if you didn't, or you still are like, what is going on? We have here on this slide the webinars that were done and the presentation slides on the OJP website. Okay, so now I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Erin, who's going to review some of the award elements that you should expect to encounter in the near future, if not already. All right, Erin, take it away.
Thanks, Danielle. That was a lot of really great information. I do see that we have one question in the chat there about the indirect costs and being done in GAM, so we will get to those questions, no worries. So the award elements. In this section, what we're going to do is kind of go over a couple of different pieces that are going to hopefully kind of pull things together. And hopefully for those of you who have been managing a few awards, this will be a bit of a refresher. So there are many different elements to look at when you're managing a grant. And so today, what we're really going to focus on in this session are those first, let's say, four to five boxes. In the next few slides, we're going to provide a visual representation of kind of like that piece in Just Grants that'll kind of cover those first four boxes. It's not going to meant to be a navigation training on Just Grants. The Just Grants training team does provide wonderful weekly webinars, and we can get you signed up for those if you'd like to participate. So for those of you who have newer awards that are just coming in now, one of the things that should have happened is that you should have gotten an award notification, most likely through Just Grants. At that point, you'll want to start reviewing the information related to the award and even printing the award documents to read over. Here on this slide is just a visual of how you can go about printing your award package. First, after opening the award in Just Grants, you'll want to look for the Begin button. It's going to be over on the right-hand side in a line, most likely with your name on it. Then you're going to click in the top right-hand side of the page under the Actions button. So when you do this, you're going to get a print option, and that is going to produce a PDF for you with all of the items listed here, kind of in the center left of the screen, from the award letter all the way down to the award conditions. I just want to make note of that Actions button because it is a really handy feature in the Just Grant system that you can use at various times to kind of print off different reports, or to be able to go back and print maybe just the award conditions if there's a question that you need to review. So let's take a little further look at some of the award conditions. As I just mentioned, you can print a copy in PDF, which will be very handy to read outside of the system. But inside Just Grants, you do want to be able to kind of scroll through the different pages of the award conditions here. It's important that you read these terms because these are award conditions and they cover a lot. And we're going to talk about some of the specific ones a little later in this webinar. But really what I want to highlight here is that when you accept an award and you accept these award conditions, your organization is entering into a legally binding contract with the federal government. So it's good to understand the terms before you sign the contract. All right, so sometimes the award conditions may require what we call a hold, or which will basically kind of stop you from being able to access your funds. To be able to lift that hold, that's going to require an action by you as the recipient. And this funding balance and availability tab is not only a good overview of the grant as you go along, but if you scroll down, we'll also show different holds on your funds that will require action. Please note that the hold will only appear in this tab if the award is accepted and registration is completed in ASAP. We'll discuss that one in a moment. All right, so award acceptance. So you may have received communication that your award must be accepted within 45 days. If you haven't already accepted the award, I would just encourage you to reach out to your grant manager, and if you could, let them know an estimate on when you expect this to occur. We do understand that sometimes there will need to be prior approvals. The grant award acceptance in Just Grants is, again, creating a legally binding contract with the federal government. So please consider carefully who is accepting the award in the authorized representative role, which we'll talk about in just a second. So as I mentioned, let's talk about some roles. Award acceptance is a two-step process, ending with the authorized representative accepting the award electronically in Just Grants. Before that can happen, the person who has the Entity Award Administrator, sometimes you'll see the acronym EA, must make some key role assignments. The Entity Award Administrator role is an important one to consider here during award acceptance, but also for the life of the award, because this is the only role that can assign or reassign permissions. The Entity Award Administrator definitely should be someone who's available during this phase as well as in the future, just in case there's any staff turnover. The other key role that I began to mention before is the authorized representative. This is the person in your organization or within your local unit of government with the authority to sign a contract and enter into the grant agreement. That is a very key piece of information. All right, I bet you're all wondering, for those of you who are newer, how are we accessing our funds? All right, once you're through the section in Just Grants where your award is marked pending external assignee, and you've gotten through the award acceptance phase, you'll need to set up or ensure that you have an active account in the U.S. Treasury's Automated Standard Application for Payment, or ASAP, system. Just Grants and ASAP do share information on the awards, and that will often affect a hold or limiting the ability to draw down the funds. So accessing funds in ASAP. If you are a current or former OJP grant recipient with an active ASAP account, hopefully you don't take any action at this point unless you need to add a new user. And also please be careful if you haven't had an award in a while or haven't accessed ASAP in a while, accounts do go inactive. So please just make sure that everything is set up and ready to go. If you're new to OJP as a grant recipient, after your award has cleared the acceptance phase in Just Grants, the Entity Award Administrator will receive 2 emails from ASAP. And they're going to look a little bit like they're auto-generated, but they will say do not reply, and ASAP will be in the email address so that you know it's legitimate. This will help begin the registration process. Note there will be a 2-step login at the beginning, and many of you will be using the ID Me feature to begin the login for ASAP. If you run into trouble with ASAP registration and you need the the email resent, or if you need assistance with registering in ASAP, please contact the OJP Office of the Chief Financial Officer. You're going to see the acronym OCFO a lot, customer service, or we can provide the link to visit the ASAP site for some resources. Again, I just want to highlight, because the registration and the enrollment is generated here within OJP, please make sure you're contacting OCFO and not ASAP. So as I've mentioned in a few previous slides, we've got award conditions that are part of the agreement or the contract that your organization or agency is signing. So as the recipient of grant funds, your organization or agency is responsible for adhering to these award conditions. It's important you read and understand the applicable conditions. OJP applies many award conditions to all of the grant agreements, and these are going to cover various requirements such as adherence to the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, the uniform requirements found in 2 CFR 200. The link on this slide has details on the legal requirements that are contained in many of the award conditions, and we're going to highlight quite a few of them here today. All right, again, as I've mentioned, some of the award conditions are going to produce a withholding. When there are award conditions in Just Grants with a hold, that means it will prohibit both your expenditure and your drawdown of funds until your grant manager submits what's called an award condition modification. Sometimes you might see the acronym ACM. Withholding conditions may be applied for various reasons. Most commonly, and at this beginning stage of award acceptance, it's usually related to the budget, in that we could not approve or clear your budget prior to the award becoming active. We'll cover this in more detail in the next slide. Likewise, if your application has some missing documents or insufficient mandatory attachments, in some cases, for example, this may include a hold on funds until more information is provided, such as if there is an environmental impact potentially with the project. Please note, withholding conditions may give you access to about 10% of the total grant award for startup activities as you kind of address some of the needed actions. It's your responsibility to ensure any funds that are used are only for authorized costs. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about that budget clearance process. Some of your budgets were not approved prior to award issuance. The most common reasons are listed on the slide. Your budget may require a review by the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, and is most common with discretionary awards. OCFO returns the budget, usually with a conditional clearance, to the attention of the assigned Grant Award Administrator, or GAA. the conditionally cleared budget will be in the grant award modification section of Just Grants. It'll show up as an in-progress budget clearance SCAM. If a budget hold is placed on the award with no action to be completed by OCFO, for example, if you have a JAG award, the grant award administrator will need to supply the grant manager with some budget revisions. Once submitted, the grant manager will review to ensure all the issues have been addressed and move the approval on to the next level. Now, if your budget does require review by OCFO, and that will usually happen through the GAM, a final review of and approval must happen before your grant manager can manually remove that budget hold in the form of the award condition modification that I mentioned previously. Please note that if the budget hold condition has not been cleared, you might not have addressed everything needing to be done, even if you get that final budget clearance from OCFO. Please double check with your grant manager and make sure that you have submitted all of the proper documentation and that you've done everything to ensure that that withholding can be removed. And this has to be done prior to any spending. So within a budget, and some of the reasons for the budget to be held back or given a conditional clearance is going to be often unallowable costs. All costs that are in your budget must be allowable, reasonable, applicable, and necessary to the project. Certain costs may be considered unallowable or restricted based on the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, maybe an executive order, cost principles, program statute, or the program notice of funding opportunity. The list of unallowable costs on this slide is not comprehensive. This is only some examples. You can start by reviewing the allowable and unallowable costs in the Grants Financial Guide and discuss allowability of certain costs with your grant manager if you have questions. Additionally, OCFO covers much of this in the Grants Financial Management training, for which many of you have that listed in a required award condition. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. I know these slides often produce a few questions. Eric or Stephen, are there any questions that are worth clarifying at this point before we move on?
Aaron, thanks. Just had one question in the chat about the new de minimis indirect cost rate, which increased to 15%, and how a grantee would be able to claim that. And I responded that, and it's relevant to this slide, that if they wanted to claim that for any costs incurred on or after October 1, of course it can't be incurred, it can't be claimed for any cost before that date. But if they wanted to claim it for any cost on or after that date, they would revise their budget accordingly. If the budget that is pending clearance, then they can do it when they receive the budget clearance sent back to them by OCFO. But their budget is already cleared, then they can submit a budget modification GAM to request the increased de minimis rate. And that's it so far.
Thank you. All right, well, if that's the only question, I am going to pass over to my colleague, Isa, who will go over a few more things.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So we have the Grants Financial Management Training. One of the award conditions, which is an administrative requirement, is the completion of the Grants Financial Management Training by both the assigned grant award administrator and financial manager within 120 days of award acceptance. If the training, and that is to be taken if the training has not been completed within the past 3 years. However, if there is any staff turnover and you have a new grant award administrator or financial manager, they must complete the training within the 120-day requirement. The award condition for this requirement withholds funds until the training is complete. That means you will not be able to access funds until you complete the training online. Next slide, please. Subawards and procurement contracts. You may make subawards and or enter into procurement contracts with other non-federal parties. Different administrative requirements apply to subawards and procurement contracts. So it is important to correctly classify the activity or entity in your budget. This slide has some helpful hints when trying to determine if what you are working with is a subaward or a procurement contract. Next slide, please. Subawards. Here are some characteristics of subawards. All subawards under a federal award require prior approval by the funding agency. The approval for most programs can be granted if the specific subaward is listed in the application, and BJA issues an award and clears the budget. This is considered approval of the subaward. Once the award has been listed in the application and BJA has cleared the budget. However, certain programs require express approval of subawards even if they are included in the application. And the program notice of funding opportunity and award conditions would state this. If you are unsure, please contact your BJA grant manager. Next slide, please. The Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act requires a specific report on each subaward over $30,000 by the end of the month following the date that the subaward has been issued. You must submit this report through a separate portal called the Federal Funding and Accountability Transparency Act Reporting System. Please refer to the resources on this slide for how to submit the FFATA report. Next slide, please. The requirements for procurement contracts are listed in the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, Chapter 3.8. This slide provides just a brief overview. Procurement contracts must be conducted in a manner to provide open and free competition. States, territories, and tribes for actions taken after October 1st, 2024, are exempt from federal requirements on competition, but instead must follow their own procurement standards. For other grantees, they must request prior approval for a non-competitive contract over the simplified acquisition threshold, which is currently $250,000. The financial guide has detailed information on how to request a sole source contract. You can also contact your grant manager. Overview. The federal financial reports, or FFRs, are submitted by the assigned federal financial manager in Just Grants. The FFR is used to monitor the award and ensure compliance with the grant. It captures key financial data, such as the amount of federal funds spent. The performance reporting timeline is dependent upon the program, as the frequency of reporting varies across different programs. Most awards submit performance reports on a semi-annual basis, but there are some that require quarterly reports or annual reports. Please review your award and reach out to your grant manager to confirm when performance reports are due. Next slide, please. Federal financial reports reflect obligated and expended funds, not the amount drawn down. They capture cumulative expenditures each year. And regardless of whether funds were expended, federal financial reports must be submitted each quarter in Just Grants. Performance reporting is the process by which recipient progress is tracked by reviewing data on grant activities to determine whether the project is being implemented as intended and desired goals and objectives are being achieved. BJA has established performance measures for each grant program. These measures were included in the original solicitation or notice of opportunity funding. And you can either report directly in Just Grants or in the performance measurement tool. It depends on the program. Performance measures also identify needs for training and technical assistance or revisions to program design and implementation. Next slide, please. Grant award modifications, called GAMs. A GAM is used to request changes that require prior approval. The grant award administrator must submit GAMs in Just Grants. Note that there will be a training next year regarding project extensions and GAMs. Next slide, please. Award monitoring. Award monitoring includes three types: substantive communication and general oversight, annual programmatic desk reviews, and in-depth monitoring. Substantive communication and general oversight is related to proactive grants management activities and ongoing communications that BJA grant managers have with grantees. Annual programmatic desk reviews are a review of materials available in the grant file for the grant manager to make a qualitative assessment of the current state of the recipient's administrative, financial, and programmatic compliance and performance. In-depth monitoring includes site visits, remote in-depth monitoring, and involves pre- and post-site visit remote monitoring activities. Grant managers conduct programmatic in-depth monitoring, which includes a financial review, and OCFO conducts separate financial monitoring efforts. All right, this is the in-depth monitoring slide. Next slide, please. All right, we'll close out. We recognize that for most of you, you have just received your award, and we know that there are many steps before you will reach the closeout stage. But this is an important stage to have in mind. When your project has been successfully completed, BJA will work with you on the closeout process. There will be a separate training on closeout available to you when you get to that point. And of course, your BJA grant manager will always be there to assist you. Next slide, please. And now we're going to conclude today's portions of the training to highlight some additional resources. All right. We suggest checking the BJA Grantee Training Series webpage, as this information is updated regularly. Please keep in mind that trainings are recorded and posted to the training webpage as well. Next page, please. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with what we discussed today, don't be, because we have a plethora of resources available to you to assist with managing your award, guidance for financial and performance reporting, and other system resources. Next, please. And remember to stay connected. Follow us on Facebook, X, or formerly Twitter, YouTube. And final slide, please. And here we have questions. Thank you so much for your time today. I will turn it over to Daryl.
Thank you, Issa. And thank you all today for joining. Just as mentioned throughout the chat, all those links you're able to click on, hyperlink to as you need to. And as mentioned as well, the PowerPoint slides and recording will be sent out to the registration list once it's available. So you'll be able to go online and reference this as you need to as you go through things. At this time, I'd invite the BJ panel to come on and ask and answer any questions you may deem necessary, either a reiteration or something new that's come in.
So to answer Steve, I think I might have pronounced that incorrectly. We did host, or our office did host a PMT training, I believe, and I think there may be an additional session. I just have to look for it. If all else fails, we have our website that will provide all, the training resources, but let me see if I can find that. The link for the financial management training, I believe, was posted in the chat several times. I believe it's the same link since I'm just kidding, since forever. But we can post that back in there. And yes, if you took the course over 3 years ago, you have to take it again. As do we as grants managers. And Brianna, I'm so excited. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few coming in through the Q&A panel there. Eric, thank you for addressing those to date. There's a couple more coming in currently. Can you see those, Daniel?
Yeah, I see them. I can't type fast enough to get them answered, but I'll answer them right now. That's okay. After you submit performance and financial reports, when we have access to submit a closeout. So once final reports are complete, you can initiate a closeout in Just Grants when activity is complete. Yes, if your financial management training has expired and you're overdue you will need to retake it. Following up, Eric answered this one, but on checklists, yep, we received that, and we'll talk further about that. Good suggestion. Just looking over the other ones here, we entered performance measurement question from Mr. Haveman. Lots of links in the chat, so please take a look at those for those that are still on and may want those resources. I'm looking through the questions. It looks like they're all answered here. They have been submitted. Mr. Fox, I think that's all the questions.
Okay, great. And while we have everybody still, I'm going to put in the chat, there's going to be 2 more trainings in this grant management series. One takes place on December 5th, and that's the one I just put in the chat on performance measures and reporting. And then once I'm done speaking here, I'll put in for the version 2 of this actual webinar, the Managing Your Award. That's going to take place on December 12th, all at 1 p.m., similar to this one. So if you want to rejoin or recommend colleagues join those other webinars, please do, and you can share that registration links out as you need to.
Daryl, we had a couple more questions come in. You mind if we address those verbally?
Most certainly.
Let me get to the question from, sorry, I'm scrolling here. A question from Rachel about an award announcement. We're still making awards, so I would refer to the notice of funding opportunity, or previously known as a solicitation, that you applied for. There will be a contact for that program in the NOFO, and you can reach out to them. It may be the OJP Resource Center. You can reach out to them for a better update if you haven't heard anything yet. Mary had a question about a scheduled training for how to request payments. We don't have one scheduled for that, but I see that Aaron placed some resources for the ASAP system in response to your question, and that's the place to connect to. And then also for questions with ASAP, you refer to those references. You can also contact the OCFO customer service. And we also had a question about whether the allowability of food and refreshments. Generally, food and refreshments are unallowable under our awards. We have approval in very limited circumstances, so that is a situation where you definitely want to reach out to your BGA grant manager to discuss. But generally, food and refreshments are unallowable.
Okay, I think that's the end of the questions at the moment. And as mentioned, if you want to revisit what was mentioned today, go ahead and register for the December 12th session, and you can get any questions that may come up in the meantime from now until then that you may think of that you want to ask. So unless there's anything left with the BJA team that want to mention in closing.
I have one follow-up. It looks like we had a ASAP link error. I'm going to put it in the chat in place of the Q&A. Oh, it's in there. Mary, do you see the ASAP link in the chat? It looks like it's kind of hard to pull it out of Q&A, but I do see it there. And I think that's the last thing, Joe.
Okay. I don't know if there's another question from Anthony. I don't know. Was that addressed prior?
1 second.
I see Anthony's question about some BJA grants have open periods for sub-award solicitations like JAG, even those have to be approved federal government after selection committee. JAG is unique in that BJA does not need to approve the sub-awards under JAG. So that JAG is different in that respect. For all of our other programs, it depends on the program. Under some programs, sub-recipients, if they're included in the application and we issue the award and clear the budget, they would be considered approved and you don't need to seek prior approval. But for other programs, and there's quite a few, they have a specific award condition that requires express prior approval by BJA. Project Safe Neighborhoods is one of those such programs. So even if you had a sub-award listed in a budget under one of those programs, you would still need to get separate prior approval from BJA before you entered into any of the sub-awards. But for JAG, that is not the case.
Okay. Thanks so much, Eric. Just hang on for one more moment. If something comes up, please enter it. If not, we will go ahead and conclude today's program. Okay, very comprehensive. So with that, we want to thank you all for joining today's webinar. So on behalf of BJA and all of our panelists, thank you again. And hopefully we will see you on the subsequent webinars we will be hosting. This will conclude today's presentation.